So yeah, as you pointed out, it is a nice continuation. I really liked what Adrian talked about in terms of being flexible and spontaneous with our plans, our lesson plans. I'm a teacher, coach, as all of you, and I'm sure you understand the dilemma. I mean, we have, to me, one of the best jobs in the world. It's a profession. It's fulfilling, but it is also demanding. I teach and I coach kids, teens, corporate clients. I train teachers. As you pointed out, I spend a lot of time creating materials, publishing them online for teachers as well. So I am a bit kind of obsessed about, finding a good approach for us teachers, coaches, that makes for efficient planning. As Adrian put it, we've got to be efficient with our planning because our goal is to coach students to learn effectively. And we're going to start off, I'm going to share my presentation. We're going to start off immediately with, there we go, with one of the first teacher trainings that I had actually at the beginning of my modest career. I had this teacher trainer. She was lovely. She made a bit of a generalization. So please forgive me for the generalization because it is 2020 and we all know as teachers that stereotypes, generalizations are dangerous. But I think you'll understand this one. She was training us teachers and she told us that, well, she put students in two categories. She said there's some students that just love fluency activities. When you give them speaking activities, they're like Elvis. They turn on the rock and roll side of things. Quite typically, these students are quite outgoing, communicative. They probably already expose themselves to English through games online, through YouTube, things like that. Those students, they love those speaking activities, but the moment we start working a bit on accuracy in class, boom, they turn into Wesley Adams and they hate it. They don't like those fill in the gaps. They don't want to think about it. They just want to communicate and have fun with English. While other students, there are other students, they're shy, they're more introvert, that might be perfectionists. Now, when we start working on accuracy in class, those students, they start to tango, They're a bit like Sheldon Cooper. They might be a bit geeky, a bit nerdy. They want to think about things. The moment we give them a speaking activity, well, I don't know about you, but I almost feel like I'm Dr. House getting ready to give them a colonoscopy. They're like, ugh! Speaking activity. Ugh. It is a big generalization on our students. Her point though at the end was something that disturbed me a little bit. She told us, guys, don't be too hard on yourselves because these are different kind of students, and the outgoing students, they'll develop their fluency. That's what they like. They'll do it naturally. Don't worry about it. The more shy or perfectionist students, they'll work on their accuracy. They'll enjoy it. They'll develop that side of language, and they'll all develop their language in that way. Well, I thought to myself, what's the point of my job then? If these students are that way anyways, naturally, and they'll develop those skills on their own, that might be why there's certain students, certain people around the world that think our profession is less and less useful, that think that robots, programs can replace us. I mean, it's pretty much giving up on our profession and just going back to the good old, from my name, I'm sure, Antoine, I come from this French-speaking world. So to me, this is a common joke. My tailor is rich. My tailor is not rich. My flowers are beautiful. Your flowers are not beautiful. Practically any French person can tell you this. But I'm sure if you've been to France, Belgium, Switzerland, you'll have noticed that not a lot of French-speaking people can speak English. I don't want to give up. I think it's actually the opposite. If there are students that will naturally develop their fluency, I got to help them with their accuracy. And the other way around, if there are students that are naturally going to develop their accuracy, my role is to coach them to develop their fluency in an efficient and effective way. So leaving that teacher training, it got me thinking about accuracy and fluency. I think it's fair to say that accuracy is pretty straightforward to define. Accuracy is pretty much, well, is it right or is it wrong? Now, we're talking languages, we're not talking sciences, so we know that there are gray areas. I'm sure you remember, or I'm sure you've had students bring up that moment when Harry Potter, the first time he goes shopping with Hagrid, he looks at Hagrid and goes, I haven't any money. Not I don't have, not I haven't got, I haven't any money. Colloquially, no problem. So accuracy is clear to define. What is fluency to you? Well, I'll open the chat, there we go. How would you define fluency as a teacher? Is that question for me? Have we met? Fluency is confident speaking, being able to communicate, how precise you use language, the ability to find a way to express yourself without too many gaps, responding, babbling, not afraid of talking, coherence and cohesion. A lot of things. Sorry, I'm trying to follow a state of flow when speaking a foreign language. A silly word that scares learners. Love it, Rob. To be able to communicate in a confident manner and with a nice flow. We're all expressing in different words something that we understand. We all understand what fluency is. The desired aim above all. It's complicated to define fluency in a few words. It's even more complicated to measure fluency. So if we can measure accuracy of our students, how do we measure fluency? Filling the gaps with natural passages like right, yeah, what I mean. Very nice. I like to define fluency in this way. I tell my students, fluency is the flexible use of what you know. There's no way that we're going to be able to go over every single potential real life scenario in our sessions. What I can help you with in terms of fluency is helping you to adapt, to use what you know in a flexible way. Let's say we go over, buying tickets, for example. There will always be 2 or 3 scripts in a textbook of things like that, and students learn it. Oh, can I have a ticket to London, please? Oh, yes, that will be £3.79. Here you are. Here's your change. Thank you very much. But in real life, we cannot guarantee to our students that that is exactly the scenario they're going to be faced with. Let's say they go to England, they're at the train station, they need a ticket to London. They go, hi, can I have a ticket to London, please? And the response is, sorry, there are no trains to London today. You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to be flexible with what you know, because we can't cover every single possible scenario in our sessions. And that is where I read a book, Thinking Fast and Slow, from Daniel Kahneman. He is not in education. He's a Nobel Prize winning economist. But what I found in his book really changed my way of teaching at first, because he defined 2 distinct systems of thought processes that we have in our minds. he defined system 1 and system 2, and they're easy to define. System 1, automatic, unthinking. When you're tying your shoes, when you're riding a bike, using a smartphone intuitively. I always like bringing up, if you have a clock, not a digital one, an old clock nearby, just quickly look at it. What time is it? You're going to tell the time like this. You're not going to need to go like, so the small hand is pointing to the 2. Okay, that's a 2. The big hand is pointing at the 5. Now, that's not a 5 because it's a big hand. 5 times 5, 25. So it's 25 past 2. You don't need to go through the whole process. This skill has become a system 1 skill. It's automatic, it's unthinking. It has become a reflex. We have a second system. It's our system 2. It's logical, it's effortful. Making an informed decision, choosing who to vote for. I'm not going to expand on that. It's upsetting enough at the moment. But yes, learning new things falls into system 2. It's important for us to realize that whenever students, people, learners are faced with new knowledge, their system 2 is alight. That's why they ask all these questions. They're in their logic. It makes us feel in control. But if we want to help our students, the learner, speak a language fluently, it's obvious here that we need to help students move whatever they learn from system 2 to system 1. I call it the triangle of death. It can be any of the hard skills involved in language learning, vocabulary, chunks, grammar, things like that. Here we have an example with vocabulary. I want to say this, the picture. It's clear in my mind. I want to say it in English. Now, if I look for the word in my L1 and then translate it to window, the word in English, it's fine when I learn it at first, but when I'm in a real life situation, it's too slow. I'm relying on my system 2. Our goal, our aim for our students, for our learners is, and I'm not saying here you cannot translate. It's fine as new knowledge, but the whole goal of the education process, the learning process, is to make link direct. That is our system 1. I have the picture of a window and I can immediately say it in the language that I want. Window, fenêtre, akno. Through practice, what we want to do is make that blue arrow much stronger than the red path, that red triangle of death. And this is where second great reference, and again, someone not from education, really helped me out. This man, Anders Ericsson, who sadly passed away this year, is a psychologist, and he has been studying, or had been studying, sadly, sorry, how experts develop their expertise. And he makes the difference between naive and deliberate practice. It's really fascinating. I highly recommend his book. In a nutshell, naive practice is simulating real life. Naive practice is accumulating more experience. It's a necessary part of the learning process. It's when we give our students tasks, projects, production activities, most speaking activities are a simulation of real life. It's an accumulation of more experience for the student. That is naive practice. Then there is deliberate practice that pinpoints something we want to improve. We set specific goals. We refine through repeated performance and devote time for constructive feedback and evaluation. That's the drilling part. The good old practice makes perfect. We teachers, educators, coaches know that practice makes perfect. How are we going to make it fun and engaging for the student is a factor of great importance, because To some students, drilling might seem boring, might seem old-fashioned, but it works. It is very effective. I highly recommend Anders Ericsson's work on that. It is fascinating. He analyzed all this in loads of different professions, artists, sportsmen, sciences, how all experts develop their expertise. This led me to really develop a simple yet very flexible approach to practice in my lessons. I am now very clear on which stage of the learning process my students are at in transferring new knowledge from system 2 to their system 1. I propose this. No matter what methodology we use to introduce new knowledge, I mean, there's PPP, TTT, content-based learning, project-based learning. There are loads and loads of great methodologies out there that help us introduce new knowledge to the system 2. And as you see, they rely both as starting with a warmer, a lead into new knowledge, or a task, a project, and they will lead to, in the end, some kind of production activity, a real life simulation where we aim to use that new knowledge. A second iteration of a task or a project where students are going to have the opportunity to use what they've learned, to put it into practice. But in the middle, we have that practice section that is very important. At the beginning of my teaching experience, I tended to go very quickly over the practice because I felt that everything to engage the learner had to do with my great lead-in to the new knowledge, or a great task, a project, a wonderful real-life simulation in the end. Without proper practice, it is going to be difficult for students to just use their new knowledge immediately, spontaneously, in a fluent manner, as we defined it previously. So I always divide my practice into 3 distinct sections. I have practice 1, where I check. It's just very quickly checking understanding, something even as basic as he, she, it plus S. You know, sometimes I might be having a bad day. I didn't introduce it logically. The students might have not got it, or the students themselves were distracted. They're on an off day. They might be in love. You know, it happens. So I do need to check before we're going to start building reflexes. I just want to check quickly the understanding. Practice 2. We're going to automate and build those reflexes. And practice 3, we're going to test and develop fluency, push students to use what they know in a flexible, spontaneous manner. And students are simply going to go through, wow, I understand. Oh, I can do this. To, wow, I did it. And then we go off to real life simulations. P1 activities are pretty much what traditional textbooks provide us. Most of the activities that we find online or in textbooks, fill in the gaps, make the question, things like that, most of those activities are P1s. They check that students understand this new knowledge. I'd like to spend more time today on P2s and P3s. And by the way, all the activities I'm going to show you today, I've sent the presentation, so you'll get the presentation from International House, or you can send me an email, contact me on Instagram or whatever social network. So I'm going to need a volunteer student to play some P2 activities with me. Do I have a volunteer student? For some reason, it's not opening the chat while I present. What just happened?
Okay, don't worry, Antoine, we have a few volunteers by the looks of it.
Can we switch one mic on?
Yep, I think it was Ollie and Yuri has volunteered. I will switch their mic on. Just give me a second. Bear with me.
Are we on?
Just a second, hang on. No. Maybe Tanya in Minsk.
Hello, Tanya. Can you switch on your microphone?
No.
Not working.
No, I'm afraid not. Sorry, Antoine.
All right, doesn't matter. Glenn, do you have 5 minutes?
I tell you, we'll have 5 minutes. Rob Howard, are you available?
Of course I am.
All right, Rob.
Here we go, Rob.
You remember what happened last time, Antoine?
Rob, can you turn the camera on, please?
Sorry? Oh, Rob with a beautiful American flag. There you go.
Yes, for the first time in 4 years, I'm no longer a Canadian. I can proudly say I'm American.
Bravo, congratulations.
Thank you.
So look, Rob, very simply, what we're gonna do right now is a simple P2 activity. Basically, we're gonna pretend you're a student, you're learning English, you're one of those, upper intermediate students, B2, C1 students that vocabulary. You can express yourself, but you're still regularly making mistakes with he, she, it plus S. So what am I going to do? How can I, as a coach, help you? I'm not going to teach you present simple again. You're going to look at me like, dude, Antoine, I know present simple. Thank you very much. In the system too, the student, it's clear that he, she, it takes S. It hasn't become a reflex yet. So what I'm simply going to do with those students, I'm going to tell them, guys, 5 minutes at the beginning of every lesson now, every session, we're just going to take 5 minutes and we're going to drill this in a very effective and efficient way. So Rob, we're going to do a do or does race. I just want you to say do or does after the subject I give you. All right?
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
I'm sure you can do this. It's not very difficult. All right.
I can does it.
All right, Rob, ready, steady, go. I.
Does.
You're doing it on purpose, Rob.
No. Do.
Very good. You.
Do.
He.
Do.
He.
Does.
We.
Do.
She.
Do. No, does.
Very good. It.
Does.
Awesome. So Rob's being a difficult student. And the first thing I would say here is, if that really is the way your student is answering, P2s are too early. Obviously here, Rob is unclear exactly. In his system 2, he's unclear about he, she, it plus S. There's a very simple rule to follow when you're doing P2s, drilling type activities. 3 types of error correction can happen in class. Self-correction, peer correction, teacher correction. If you hear self-correction, peer correction, great. That's exactly what's supposed to happen in drilling. I mean, let's face it, students are not going to do drilling perfectly immediately on their own. They should, on their own, sorry. They're going to manage it. It's normal because they are transferring the knowledge from system 2 to a skill to system 1. But if, like Rob, I needed to help with teacher correction, roll back. The student is not ready. So Rob, are you ready for a second round?
I am.
So now this time I'm going to take out my timer. And I'm going to time to see how fast you do it. All right?
Oh, the pressure.
Exactly. So, Rob, I'm just going to change the cards a little bit because you are a strong student. So now instead of just pronouns, we're going to have nouns, noun phrases, things like that. All right. Principle is the same. Just do or does.
Okay.
All right. Ready?
Yep.
Sorry, that was my computer. Ready?
Yep.
Ready, steady, go. Elvis.
Does.
Bears.
Do.
Doctors.
Do.
Kate.
Does.
Teachers.
Do.
The Queen.
Does.
Awesome. 15 seconds, 46. Pretty good?
It's been a long day. I can do faster.
I'm sure you can do faster. What would be a good challenge for you right now? What do you think? 15 seconds down to?
If you talk faster, 10 seconds.
10 seconds?
Yeah.
Guys, do you think 10 seconds? Is that a good challenge for Rob? That's my second golden rule for drilling activities, this kind of P2 practice. We first have the type of correction that comes up to know if things are going well or not, and the challenge. A challenge can neither be too easy or too difficult. If it's too easy, the brain is not actually working. Gradually, the brain will understand that, hey, this is not that difficult, and the transfer from system 2 to system 1 is not that effective. Same thing, if it's just impossible, the student doesn't try, the learner doesn't progress. All right. I think 10 seconds is a bit easy for you, Rob. I'm going to challenge you to 7. 6 cards, 7 seconds.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready, steady, go. Elvis.
Does.
Bears.
Do.
Doctors.
Do.
Kate.
Does.
Teachers.
Do.
The Queen.
Does.
8, 12.
You were a little slow this time.
Sorry?
You were a little bit slow this time, teacher.
I was slow?
Oh, but I really understand now the difference between do and does.
You understood it before.
You know, you're right. I just wasn't paying attention. Thank you for challenging me.
Rob, you're doing it on purpose.
No.
That stage of understanding is at the P1 understanding. Here, the P2, the students know they understand. They're just refining their behavior. They know that they can do it easily, slowly. What we're simply doing, just like for any type of expertise, musicians do the same thing. Sportsmen do the same thing. They focus on one aspect, and they drill it to perfection. And you can do this with so many different aspects of the language. Vocabulary, same thing. Drill, drill, drill until just, oh, I see a window. I know it's window in English. We can do that with all bits of grammar, chunks, vocabulary. That's really part of the learning process to lead towards accurate fluency, to being able to speak English, as you said, flexibly, in a reaction kind of way, in a reflexive kind of way. So, Rob, thanks a bunch.
Thank you, teacher. My pleasure.
Good job.
Yeah.
There are loads of different activities like that are simply drilling activities, and that really, if we spend this time effectively in our sessions, I do these 10-15 minutes maximum in each session, focusing on something specific that my students, my students, the learners, need to improve. So this is, for example, a basic example of a P2 activity to get those B2, C1 students that are still making mistakes with he, she, it plus S. Get rid of that mistake. All we need for this are cards. I have a bunch of cards with subjects for a do-does race, questions for short answer races, simply my students will drill together the responses of short answer questions in English. Did you watch the movie last night? Yes, I did. Does she eat sushi? No, she doesn't. Did it snow last January? Yes, it did. Are you dancing? No, I'm not. Do you dance? Yes, I do. Is it snowing? No, it isn't. We do it a first time, slowly, calmly, so that the students feel, yeah, I get it. This is not difficult. I can do it. Then we do it a second time where we time each other. And this is great because there's no right time. You can do it faster than Rob, even without being a native speaker, for example. Rob is not especially the fastest English speaker in the world. It's always personal. So we time ourselves, and then we have 3 attempts to beat some kind of challenge we give each other. So let's say I did that first race once, and now I challenge myself to do it in less than 6 cards. Let's say 7 seconds. That's really good. Okay. Are you dancing? No, I'm not. Did you watch the movie last night? Yes, I did. Is it snowing? No, it isn't. Did it snow last January? Yes, it did. Does she eat sushi? No, she doesn't. Do you dance? Yes, I do. This has nothing to do with real life. We know that in real life, we don't always answer this way. This is exactly what Anders Ericsson teaches us. It's not, this stage of practice is not about real life. It is really about perfecting the ideal scenario, the ideal answer. And then through exposure, through real life simulations, the students will answer, yep, nope, whatever, things like that. So subject cards, cards with questions, you can do the same thing. Drill, report questions, report speech. Tense build, any grammar tense can be automated. We can build reflexes with those. If you think about it, most native speakers cannot explain the grammar of their language because it's become a reflex. If it can become a reflex in your L1, it can become a reflex in your L2 and your L3, no problem. So with subject cards, action cards, and time cards, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to drill and drill and drill. We make a snowman. We make a snowman every single day. Ron Weasley, break the team's Ron Weasley broke the Queen's teacup last summer. She's been oversleeping since like forever. Bears fall in the mud. Bears are falling in the mud at the moment. Jack feeds my cat twice a week. My classmates and I are going to rock like Elvis next weekend. Same cards, you add a dice, 1 or 2 positive, 3 or 4 negative, 5 or 6 question. And the students shuffle the cards and boom, 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 boom. Again, drill, 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 drill. And we perfect and perfect. We can focus on one tense when it's new, and we can expand because it's always, we're not going to build reflexes in one session. We know that. We're going to build reflexes by doing these 5, 10, 15 minutes a session on a regular basis, or even I've stopped giving P1 activities for homework to my students because P1 activities, fill in the blanks, is just checking understanding. I can check understanding once, but once I've checked and we're clear, the learner is clear, okay, I got this, then we just need to build those reflexes. So loads of activities like that. Now let's move on to P3s, because as we said, P1, we check understanding. P2, we automate, build reflexes. P3, we want to test and develop fluency. Remember when we were defining fluency, I said that fluency is a flexible use of what we know. It's a spontaneous reaction. And when we use naive practice, production practice, when we do real life simulations, most of the time we give students some preparation time. This takes the spontaneity away from the activity. So before going into real life simulations, what I like doing with my students are these P3 type activities. They're simple cards with a conversation starter, and students are going to have a 1-2 minute conversation based on conversation starter without any preparation. They're just going to react to what each other says. We're going to start with a very basic P3 that I absolutely love, that is very easy to put in place with your students. You're going to see. It's simply called convince. On each card, the conversation starter is student A trying to convince student B to say, do, or think something. Only one rule: student B cannot agree. And so we'll have the learners are going to have a short conversation. A trying to convince the other, and B trying to find excuses not to do what the first wants them to. So again, I'm going to need a volunteer, Rob or Glenn. Let me try to convince you to do, say, or think something. Who's up for a challenge? Have I lost you guys?
I'm still here.
I've got somebody. I'm trying to find somebody else instead of Rob, because Rob was too naughty last time. Christopher, are you?
He wasn't.
I'm joking. Christopher, are you here? Here he is. Christopher, are you interested in being a volunteer for Antoine?
Sure.
All right. That's lovely.
Camera on, do you want to see me as well? Or?
As you prefer, Chris.
Well, I'm smiling more here in this picture, so let's stick like that.
Are you saying you're not smiling now? So, Christopher, do you get the idea? I'm just gonna, a card is gonna appear, I'm gonna read it, and it's me trying to convince you to say, think, or do something.
Right.
You just react. There's only one rule: you can't agree. Okay?
Right.
We'll see what happens. All right? All right, Chris, could you please stand up?
I certainly could not. My legs are both broken.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Chris. Your legs are both broken?
Yes, in my excitement to get to the computer, when Glenn asked me to unmute, I tripped and fell and broke both legs.
That sounds pretty serious. Shouldn't you be going to the hospital?
That can wait until after the teacher training day.
Oh, you're such a dedicated teacher. Wow. Is that a regular thing? Like if you injure yourself before a session, you just go with it?
Well, I try not to injure myself before or during a session, but yeah.
You're amazing, Chris. You're amazing. Bravo. Well, you don't especially need legs. You could maybe just stand up, just with your hand, just press hard on the table and just lift yourself up that way.
Now, I actually tried this once before, and it turned out that I weighed too much and I broke my desk, breaking the computer in the process, and I can't afford a replacement. Really sorry.
Oh, that's pretty serious. I'm sorry to hear that, Chris. I mean, it sounds like your life is a bit miserable at the moment.
No, not at all. I'm actually quite happy. Besides the pain of having two broken legs, things are good.
So you're really a half is the glass is half full kind of guy.
Yes, the glass is half full, but it's chipped all around the edges.
Bravo. Then we'll leave it at that, okay? Don't stand up. Don't stand up. We do have time for one more. Let's start a rock band together.
It sounds like a great plan. I'm more of a shoegaze person myself, though. So is there any way I can convince you that maybe instead of a rock band, we could do shoegaze? And what I'm thinking of is that one of us will play a single note for 10 minutes and the other person will just stare at one member of the audience.
I can do that.
Or I don't know if you can do both.
No, I'll do the staring.
No, you'll do the, I'd prefer, if you wouldn't mind, doing the single note. I've been working on my stare. That's actually a live video feed. It isn't my photo. I was joking.
Oh, all right.
That's actually me right now. Yes, I'm
very good.
Like I'm good at staring and a ventriloquist act, all rolled into one.
Well, now, Chris, don't get me. It looks like you're standing though.
It might look that way, but actually we have a very low bookcase, and That was me recovering from, well, that was me placed into like a wheelchair, unfortunately without wheels. So it's quite difficult to get around the apartment now that I have two broken legs. Yeah, it's just a desk chair, but it has wheels on the bottom.
But you're still smiling. The glass is half full.
Exactly, yes. I mean, it's a bit more of a grimace, as some people might say.
All right. Chris, thanks a bunch. Or Christopher, sorry.
Was that what you wanted?
Exactly.
Wow.
What I love about these kind of activities, it sounds silly, but it is very, very useful. The learner is, at first, the first time learners come across activities like that, they are a bit hesitant, like what is going on? But what they are doing actually is they're developing their fluency. They're learning fit in the usual, ELT session kind of dialogue. They're reacting. Whatever reaction is good. Me as a teacher, I'm walking around, I'm listening, because when learners are in these situations, they can't make up things that are not a reflex. So I can easily identify, I call it a test of fluency, because I can hear only spontaneous reactions in these dialogues. I only hear what my students, the learners, have already transferred to their system 1. These are reflexes. And there are lots of different kind of activities like that. Conversation starters that help me identify what they still need to work on. This is another one called shock. There's no rule here. They just, it's a card, one student reads it, the other reacts, and they have a short conversation, just like we had. They're playing, again, this is like P2s, P3s, 10 minutes a lesson. Just get them warmed up before a production activity, a real life simulation. This is not a real life simulation. This is really playing with the language. I really like shock as well. It's a lot of fun, and there are loads and loads more activities like that. I do know it's already 9:47, so we're gonna move on. Oh, 9:47 to me. Again, this framework to me is really, really useful. P1s, I check understanding if I need to. It's easy to understand. It's only oriented at the basic logic or the structure of the new knowledge. P2s, we automate. It's challenging, it's engaging, and it kind of switches the brain of the student off. The system 2 switches off and starts transferring to system 1 because they're trying to do something as fast as they can. And finally, P3s, short dialogues, surprising context. It pushes the student to react using what they know. This framework makes my lesson planning so much more efficient now. And it makes the learning process so much more effective for the students because it really transfers any hard skill from system 2 to system 1. So no time for questions, unfortunately, right, Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, sadly not. We do have just literally one more question. Would developing fluency for speaking exams be similar?
Sorry?
Would developing fluency for speaking exams be similar? That was a question that literally just came through about a minute ago.
It depends. I would say it depends which exam and what kind of activity. Are we talking about for speaking? Yes. Well, yes, for fluency than for speaking. I do a lot of these activities. Yes, when preparing, I have a group of teachers preparing for CAE at the moment, for example, and it does not replace traditional like exam preparation. We do real exam tasks to prepare for the CAE, of course. But we also do a lot of these to develop fluency. The whole idea is for the learners to be able to react spontaneously.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Antoine. We're going to have to...
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, as well. You were great. And please don't take offense, Rob. You weren't really that naughty.
No.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Antoine.
My pleasure. Looking forward to the next one already.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.